Activists and NGOs say the Cape Town fires are an urgent reminder to solve homelessness or address it. The city of Cape Town has long been criticised for failing to provide adequate housing and shelter for its most vulnerable citizens. Let's chat about this now with Carlos Mesquita. He's a member of the Strandfontein Homeless Action Committee. He's on the phone for us this morning. Carlos, a very good morning to you. And we understand that this case related to this particular fire and the arrest of the homeless man is still in court. There's still proof that's needed. But he himself has admitted he had started a fire to keep himself warm, which possibly led to the devastation we saw. What does this tell us just about the consequences of not dealing or not paying attention to our homeless in this country?
Well, I think it basically speaks for the fact that we are, at some point in time, it will happen. Whether this gentleman did it or not is besides the point. It will happen at some point in time, just as it would happen to a homeless person that goes to the mountain. I was previously homeless, and I've had lots of tourists and young couples on the mountain where I was sleeping, where I had to go to them and ask them please not to light a fire because it was in the middle of winter. So somewhere along the line, unfortunately, obviously the numbers that we're talking about of homeless people sleeping on the mountain are a lot greater than the home people. And so at some point in time, there will be a homeless person. I personally, with regards to the gentleman that we're talking about now, I know he appeared in court yesterday. If I look at the run-up to them actually arresting him, it doesn't make any sense. On the mountain, there's basically four groups, and those four groups are very independent of one another. And the area that they claim that, well, where we saw the fire start, at just after 9, I saw the first visuals. That fire was small and could have been contained and was on the other side, which a foreigner would not be welcome in. So where he was arrested, that is precisely where the foreigners are, and that is near Rubik Park. So that makes sense to me in the fact that the time that he was arrested, he would have been making food. The other thing about the homeless individuals from the neighboring states is that they don't actually go digging dustbins for their food. They actually go out and buy their food. They do trolley pushing during the day, and then they'll take their 100 rand and go and buy their food and come and cook. So the whole story doesn't really make any sense to me. The fact that he admitted to starting that fire, they asked him that fire, and he said, yes, he started that fire. So I'm
or
not
a fire,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and as much as that is wrong, to link him to the first one, I don't think makes any sense. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, Carlos, I suppose now the obvious question would be, what are sort of organizations like yourself, other NGOs, activists, and what is the city actually doing about this? This is a problem that has been going on for decades, and coming up to winter now, I think particular focus and particular attention needs to be paid. We saw that there was some attention, especially during COVID, when it first hit last year, and we saw lockdown, and we saw people being taken into shelters. But what has happened since then?
Well, we mustn't go down COVID way, because, I mean, that was the worst thing that the city could ever have done was Strandfontein. So let's leave Strandfontein out of this, because that was the city at its worst. As far as the fire is concerned, I must be honest, I contacted Dr. Badruddin when I was notified of the seriousness of the fire, and requested that he please organize for shelter space and for a plan of action for the next couple of days whilst we were trying to help with the people coming down from the mountain. And I must be honest with you, within half an hour he had a team set up, and there were places made available at the Kulenburg Safe Space and at Oasis Shelter. And we were prepared to take in at our house as well. So as far as that was concerned, the response there was relatively quick and quite very good compared to what the city usually offers. So there has been a bit of an improvement as far as that's concerned. As far as we're going into winter, unfortunately our situation at the moment is more political than it is anything else. The reason why this is making such news is also we're very near to our elections. And the homeless issue is one of the biggest issues in Cape Town for the election. And so, where the groups that are totally anti the homeless population basically being on the street and in their face and in their front yards are basically utilizing this to try and recapture some of the ground they lost during this past year since Strandfontein, where there was so much attention given to homeless people and what happened at Strandfontein, that obviously there was a lot of sympathy towards towards the homeless individuals.
Yeah.
And so they lost a lot of ground there. And now they're trying to gain that ground through this incident.
Carlos, many facets to the story as well, many sides as well. A couple of years ago when I was in Cape Town on our election bus and we chatted to homeless people, we chatted to people who ran shelters and those who were staying in shelters. And there were two sides to this. Some of them saying that a lot of the shelters don't cater very well for the homeless. A lot of them take money. There's corruption there. They take money meant to provide for those in the shelters, and it never comes. It goes to those who run the shelters, goes into their pockets. And then you have those from the shelters saying, but homeless people don't actually want to come here, because when they come here, they understand that they can't, you know, if drug addiction is their problem, they are unable to do that. If it's prostitution, they are unable to do that. So there's a lot to actually deal with when it comes to dealing with the homeless situation.
There is a lot, but let me tell you that story that the homeless do not actually want to go into shelters is an absolute lie. And I'll tell you why. I, as a homeless person, I still refer to myself as a homeless person, though I'm rehomed. If you go into a shelter, if you break any of those rules, be it, and believe me, you can break those rules, and they won't even consider breaking the rule. But if you are in a shelter where there's supervision and you break that rule, you might get punished by being given a duty, or the worst that can happen to you is to get thrown out of the shelter. Whereas if you're on the street and you break that same rule, it becomes breaking the law. And breaking the law to a homeless person in Cape Town means you directly go to Polsmoor. It's not a question of, you know, stop here and pay a fine and you can go out. No. If you don't have a physical address in Cape Town, you go directly to Polsmoor for 7 days, where they check your address. Obviously, there's going to be no address, so you're looking at a 3-month sentence in any case before you even sentenced. So they make sure that you get sentenced for that crime. So nobody wants to be on the streets. The problem is, exactly as you pointed out, the fact that we have all the shelters in Cape Town are over 30 years old. There's let's call it nepotism as far as the allocation of funds is concerned, and to a large degree, some of the biggest shelters are the biggest culprits. And not only the management of the boards of the shelters that are at fault, but also the management of those shelters. They've been in their positions for such a long time that they, take it for granted that they can take what they like. And so at Strandfontein, if you look at what happened there, and I've said to the particular shelter's operator, take note of what happened to your sign at Strandfontein. The other two went up. Yours was brought down by the 600 people in that one tent, brought down that sign. That was a sign to tell you they do not like your organization. You should be investigating why they did that.
All right. Well, Carlos Mesquita, thanks very much for that, member of the Strandfontein Homeless Action Committee. And I suppose it now, the question will be just we'll have to watch and see what authorities actually do for some relief for our homeless as we head into winter.